Imagine for a second you come home after a brutally long day. You walk through the front door, drop your keys, and you're just ready for the comforting embrace of your own private sanctuary. But as you look around, you start noticing things. Tiny, almost unnoticeable things that are just slightly out of place. It gives you this sudden chill in the air that you can't quite put your finger on. You probably just think, well, I'm losing my mind. But what if you aren't? What if I told you that you are not alone? Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into the terrifying true story of the Bowen family in 1987 Massachusetts and the absolute monster living secretly inside their walls.
It started with something so incredibly mundane. A simple mug moved. It seems totally harmless, doesn't it? In 1987, Tina Bowen and her daughters were living in what seemed like a perfectly quiet, unremarkable neighborhood in Massachusetts. And their nightmare didn't kick off with a smashed window or kicked-in door. Nope. It began exactly like this, just a simple mug left on a counter that was suddenly sitting on a different table. These are those very first, easily dismissible anomalies, the kind of things that make you rub your tired eyes and just blame your own memory.
But then it progresses. You walk into the living room and the television is on a completely different channel than the one you left it on. These are the uniquely insidious details, the tiny, seemingly insignificant anomalies that literally chip away at your sense of reality. You start to seriously question your own sanity. You're asking yourself, wait, did I change that channel? Did I misplace that object? You rationalize it, of course, because the alternative is just too horrifying to even entertain. Let this question sink in for a second. Are you truly alone? When you lock your doors at night, do you ever stop and think that the threat might actually already be inside with you? For the Bowen family, this terrifying question was about to become their daily reality, completely transforming their safe haven into a psychological prison.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The subtle signs.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer escalation of it all. In the early days, Tina and her daughters did what any of us would do. They blamed forgetfulness. It's a natural human defense mechanism, right? But a terrifying escalation was brewing. Month 1, missing food from the kitchen, easy enough to dismiss. By month 2, household objects were actively being rearranged. The physical space around them was being altered. And then, by month 3, the horror transitioned from the psychological straight into the physical, scratching in the vents. At this point, the mild confusion had officially mutated into undeniable dread. This wasn't forgetfulness anymore. This was a sustained, escalating invasion over the course of several months. Which brings us to Section 2, scratching in the walls. You know, there is a very specific, visceral type of fear that hits when your own house starts making sounds it absolutely shouldn't make. At night, when the house was dead silent, the daughters began to hear these unexplainable noises. It sounded like something or someone was crawling. Imagine just lying in your bed in the pitch black, staring up at your ceiling and hearing the distinct, heavy sound of a body dragging itself through the dark, narrow vents just inches above your head. The sudden realization that a living entity was actively moving through the hollow spaces of their home, that is pure, concentrated terror. Now for Section 3. The hatchet encounter. The scratching, that was just the prelude. The psychological torment eventually spilled out from behind the plaster and wood, and the narrative takes a sharp, highly violent turn here. One evening, Tina Bowen came home to an unthinkable sight. According to the case file, a teenage boy wearing strange clothes and white paint on his face. Just visualize that for a moment. You walk into your living room, expecting to greet your family, and instead, standing right there in your home is a bizarre, horrifying intruder. His face is painted white, staring dead at you with cold eyes, and in his hand, he is holding a small hatchet. It is literally a scene straight out of a nightmare, manifesting in the middle of a Massachusetts home. The sheer panic of that moment is unimaginable. This intruder used the hatchet to force Tina and her family into a single room, taking them hostage inside their own house. The tension, the agonizing fear for their lives, it was absolute chaos. But in the middle of that chaos, some incredible bravery emerged. One of the daughters, acting on pure survival instinct, managed a desperate escape. She slipped out, ran for her life to a neighbor's house, and immediately called the police. This leads us into Section 4, the locked house mystery. Now, when the police arrive with sirens blaring, you'd think the terror is finally over. The cavalry's here, right? But instead, they were confronted with an impossible puzzle. Let's walk through this. First, their rapid response gave the intruder virtually zero time to flee very far. Second, despite their quick arrival, the painted boy with the hatchet had completely vanished. Third, officers secured the entire perimeter and found no broken windows, no kicked-out screens, no forced exit points anywhere. And the most chilling point of all, the house was entirely locked from the inside. How does an armed intruder just vanish into thin air, leaving a perfectly sealed house behind?
And finally, Section 5, the Phantom Revealed.
The responding officers were completely stumped. They searched the house for hours. They checked the basement, the attic, every single standard closet and crawl space. It made absolutely no sense. Until, finally, an officer's flashlight caught something unusual. A seam in the wall that just shouldn't be there. They opened the secret wall panel, and what they found inside is the stuff of actual nightmares. Hidden away in the dark, suffocating architecture of the house itself was a tiny, hidden crawl space. A space just big enough for a human being to exist in secret.
Hiding in that cramped, suffocating space was 17-year-old Daniel LaPlante. The terrifying monster living in the walls for months, the one who painted his face white and wielded a hatchet. He wasn't a phantom at all. He was just a teenage boy. And this brilliantly illustrates his utterly terrifying daily routine. For months, Daniel LaPlante had been living inside their walls, executing this precise cycle. Step 1, he would silently watch the family sleep. Step 2, he would creep out to eat their food, which perfectly explains those missing groceries from month 1. Step 3, he would use their bathroom when they left the house. This perfectly captures the ultimate violation of a family sanctuary. He didn't just break in, he literally embedded himself into their daily existence, living like a parasite right alongside them.
He was the ultimate uninvited guest. Now, obviously, Daniel was pulled from the walls and arrested, brought to justice for his crimes. But the physical arrest didn't fix what was broken. The psychological damage inflicted on the Bowen family was permanent. Their sanctuary was completely shattered. They could never look at their home, their safe space, the exact same way ever again. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the closet would carry the heavy, lingering weight of those horrifying months. The Bowen family learned the absolute hardest way possible that the subtle signs should never, ever be ignored. So I'll leave you with this one lingering, unsettling thought. What would you do if you laid your head on your pillow tonight, closed your eyes, and heard a distinct, heavy scratching sound coming from inside your walls?